everybody, it's Pastor Tim.
And Pastor Mallory.
From ULC Fort Wayne. Hope you're having a wonderful day out there. It is time again for our weekly podcast, Unfiltered Love, where we kind of just have a conversation, ask you guys to chime in, and we talk about the issue that's kind of been on our hearts this week.
Yeah.
This week, we're definitely leaning a little bit more towards a biblical-centered kind of message.
Mm-hmm.
The cat wants to chime in, and, you know...
He'll probably be in and out.
He'll probably be in and out the whole time. But we kind of had not stumbled across a verse, I guess, but had kind of pulled out a verse that's been speaking to us a lot lately.
Yeah.
But it is definitely something that we think is very real and very applicable to today's world, kind of where we find ourselves.
Yeah.
So I want to go ahead and I'll start with reading the verses themselves. I have them right here on Pastor Mal's lovely green phone.
It's beautiful.
It is. But it is Luke 12, starting in verse 49. It is the NRSV translation, which is the New Revised Standard Version, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So starting in verse 49, Jesus is speaking to, I believe, just his disciples here. And he starts with, I came to bring fire to the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. I have a baptism with which to be baptized, and what stress I am under until it is completed. Do you think that I have come to bring peace to the earth? No, I tell you, but rather division. From now on, 5 in one household will be divided, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. They will be divided, father against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. He also said to the crowds, when you see a cloud rising in the west, you immediately say it is going to rain. And so it happens. And when you see the south wind blowing, you say, there will be a scorching heat, and it happens. You hypocrites, you know how to interpret the appearance of earth and sky, but why do you not know how to interpret the present time? So really, in these verses, Jesus is saying a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And we kind of fall into this false understanding of who Jesus was.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, he's called Prince of Peace, and, you know, they thought he was just going to bring kind of a harmony to the earth.
Peace on earth.
Right. But in that verse, you know, that set of verses alone, he goes, nah, I'm not here to bring peace. I'm here to bring division.
Right.
And then he goes on to speak about how people aren't picking up on the fact that there
right,
is...
like you can look around, you can see what it's going to do outside. You can understand that, but if you look around and see what's going on in your neighborhood, your country, your state, anything like that, for some reason, you're not able to watch the reality around you.
Right. Because he's not here to have us overlook these issues.
No.
He's not here to cover up the issues.
No.
He's here to basically shine a light on them and say, this is not okay.
Right, and bring justice to it.
Yeah, because there is no true peace when justice has not been served.
Right.
It's literally the age-old adage of no justice, no peace.
Right. Because
peace does not mean we're not arguing about these things. We're not having these hard conversations. That's not peace. It's apathy.
Right.
And I think that we're both kind of on the same page with that, of all of these things going on around us right now with, you know, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, still dealing with, you know, people still not basically taking into account that Black lives do matter.
Right.
And Jesus is, in those verses, saying, I came to bring a fire.
Right.
And all of this was set before you of, you know, to take care of each other.
You had the basic principles before he
Yeah,
got here.
but you've done 0 things with it.
Right.
And I think he's kind of pissed off.
I would say so. I would be.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had taught our kids how to treat each other and how to love each other and, you know, be kind to one another and make sure everybody's okay, and then I come back all of a sudden and they're just, like, fighting each other or hanging out with their friends and being mean and just being little jerks, I'm going to be angry.
Yeah, I'd be pretty pissed off.
Right.
But
timeouts for everybody.
Yeah, you get a timeout, and you get a timeout.
Timeouts like candy, man.
Yeah. But the other thing that I think a lot of people may miss in those verses is where he's talking about his baptism.
Yeah.
And as we know, he knew he was going to come and die for the sins of mankind.
Well, this is after he's already been baptized. By
right,
John the
he's
Baptist.
been baptized by John the Baptist, so it's very clear he's not talking about like his water baptism.
Right.
He's talking about the baptism basically by fire, not, allegorically.
Yes.
Because he's not, set on fire or anything, but still. He has to go through a death. He has to go through something that God before then hadn't experienced.
Right.
Because when you're an all-powerful, almighty God, you don't experience death or pain.
Right.
You're outside of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So for God to put himself in Jesus Christ's body and go through hunger and thirst, that's why he was in the desert for 40 days.
Right.
But he goes through all of the human experience and then has to experience death and the pain that comes with that.
Right.
And he's talking about that, and he goes, a baptism I have to undergo and what pressure I am under until it happens. He's literally going, you think you fucking got it bad. Like, I have to die for y'all.
Right.
And you can't treat each other like equals?
Yeah, you can't at least be nice to each other in this time?
Yeah.
Or any time?
And I think that so many people are so willing to overlook these passages of Jesus.
Oh, where he gets sassy and petty?
Yeah, where he's flipping tables and...
Those are my favorites.
Calling the Pharisees brood of vipers, which was basically a cuss word back then. Mm-hmm. And kind of one of the worst
favorite
things.
Moments. What are you talking
about?
about?
Exactly. But...
Sassy Jesus is the best Jesus.
Right. And you know who we're talking about, who ignores those things. If you know our stuff at all, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Yeah. But they skip over these verses where Jesus is saying, no, I understand that my teachings are going to bring division.
Yeah.
And he knew that.
He's not there. Would he like to bring people together? Of course.
Right.
Obviously.
But he knows nature.
That, he knows human nature, and he knows that the religious leaders of the time are not going to be on board with what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
The law does not fit into love each other at all.
No.
And that's why he's like, no, I'm not here to make it peaceful.
Right.
I'm here to make sure you guys start treating each other better.
Yeah.
So that eventually you guys can work towards peace.
Yeah. Well, and he even says, over at Matthew, but kind of around the same time, he's talking about the golden rule.
Yeah.
And it's do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Right.
In this is all the law and prophets.
Yep.
Jesus is specifically saying...
Just treat people how you want to be treated.
If you treat people how you would like to be treated, then you're following the law and prophets. There's not these little intricacies and tiny little things that the...
Love God, love people.
Exactly. And the religious leaders of his time were not doing that. Mm-mm. They were saying, you have to give this much... You have to do these specific things at a specific time.
There was a giant list of things you had to do to be in God's good graces.
Right. And for Jesus to walk in and say, no.
Right.
He knew that they were going to do that.
Right.
Like there was no question in his mind of, I'm upsetting a balance.
Right.
And I think that should sound somewhat familiar.
In the last 3 years, I've learned a lot about how other people want to be treated, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's not been anybody treating each other with kindness and caring and understanding.
No.
So there are a lot of people that they don't like each other and they just want to be hated.
Right, apparently.
At least that's what they're telling me from...
Right, from their actions. Because
from their actions.
Actions speak louder than words.
Much louder than words.
Every time. And, again, it's those things where people forget. Jesus was not here... To play by the rules. Jesus was a radical. Mm-hmm. Jesus was branded a heretic. Mm-hmm. And how many times have we heard, you're a bunch of heretics, you're leading people to hell for preaching love?
Oh, yes. I love when I am told I'm leading people to hell when all I have said is love each other.
Right. It's crazy, right?
Be nice to each other.
But, they literally freed an insurrectionist over Jesus. When he brought out Barabbas and Jesus and said, who do you want freed? This guy that's been teaching a love gospel, or the guy that literally tried to overthrow the government and was a murderer? And they picked the guy that tried to overthrow the government and was a murderer. Does that sound familiar?
We're not going to get too much into that one. We're going to turn.
But just think about it. That's all I'm saying.
Food for thought.
Yeah. So... Again, diving back into those verses of, he understood that he was going to bring division even within households.
Yeah.
Then families that were very close-knit at the time. Like, there were mother-in-laws, mothers, fathers, children all living in the same house.
I mean, back then, generational living was a very popular thing. It was easier for every family to be able to take care of...
Right, because you could take care of the more elderly.
Yeah, take care of your babies and the elderly with having everybody in one spot, or at least very close to each other.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
It was a very popular thing that we've kind of gotten away from in the past little bit.
Yeah, no, this society has become extremely individualistic.
Yeah.
I'm not taking care of anyone except me and maybe my spouse and my kids.
Right, well, I mean, even to the sense of, I said this yesterday when we were out on our adventure.
Mm-hmm.
I said that, when we were teenagers and we wanted to go do something like that, we had to make sure that we planned it in advance, we got permission, we did all these things. And it was weird for me because you and I could literally wake up and just be like, hey, I want to go do this today.
Yeah.
And we just go and don't have to tell anybody.
Right.
Because we are on the opposite end of town of everybody, and we're a very individualistic society that you don't really... It's not a big deal.
Right.
Which is a good thing on one hand, but also you still have to take care of each other.
Yeah. And that's literally what Jesus is asking, is to take care of one another.
Right.
But, and then kind of to break into the last part of the verses, which are extremely important as you think about it, because we touched on it a little bit a few minutes ago, but it was, you can walk outside and determine if it's going to rain if you see, clouds off to the west, for us at least. He's calling different things out that, in the time would have made more sense.
Right.
But he's saying you can walk out and you can understand what the weather's going to be.
Yeah.
But you can't look out and notice there's injustice and inequality going on around you.
Because it makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah. Because it's not that you're not recognizing it.
No, it's that you don't want to pay attention to it because it is uncomfortable.
Right.
Because what we do is uncomfortable.
Extremely uncomfortable.
If I wanted to live comfortably, we would not be doing this.
Well, and we've had that conversation a lot of times of, sure, we could sit down, shut up, and be fine. Yeah. Because we're both bisexual, but... We present as a heterosexual couple. Yeah. And we could sit and, you gotta call out what it is. Our skin tone makes it very easy for us to just sit back and let things happen because it doesn't affect us personally. Right. But we are choosing to do what Jesus did and step out and say, no, I'm not personally involved.
But I can help those who are because of the things that I have. Because
Jesus could have walked by the adulterous woman that was out in the middle of town and they were about to stone her because the law said that she should be stoned. But instead, he walks up and says to the Pharisees who were around and, the other religious leaders, who doesn't have sin? Right. You cast the first stone. And starts writing. And we don't know what he wrote. No, we have no idea what he wrote.
More than likely, he was writing because the people who could understand it were the Pharisees.
Right. Were those religious leaders who were wealthy and well enough off to have time to learn how to read and not have to learn a trade or do anything like that. So he's writing in the dirt. And I think there's a reason we don't know. Because even in those moments of he was calling it out, he wasn't embarrassing them publicly. He was doing something that only they would see what he was doing. Right. And that's how the Holy Spirit still works in people. Yep. We don't have to call these things out. That's the Holy Spirit's job in each and every person.
But you have those convictions when you're having those moments of like, ooh, I should not be doing this.
Right.
You feel it.
Right. And it's very clear.
Yes.
And you can feel the difference between that and something of, well, I've been told my entire life this is wrong, but this actually feels like the right way to go.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got to start to learn to break those things apart. And that's where that division lies that he talked about is people were going to just say, no, I've just always been taught that this is right. So I'm just going to go with this, whether or not I agree with it.
Because it's the blind following, the blind devotion.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're blindly devoted to somebody, you're not actually devoted to somebody.
Right. And
if you haven't thought it through and made your own decisions.
Yeah, exactly. And in many places, Jesus says to examine your own faith. Right. At all times. Yeah. Like, I've said this before. Thomas the Doubter was, not praised, but praised by Jesus because he asks for proof, and Jesus gives him proof.
Yeah, he asks questions.
Right. He questions it, and Jesus doesn't say, how dare you not believe me?
No, he says, good job.
Yeah. He's like, here are the holes in my hands. You saw me die. Is this not where these would be? Right. And it's like, okay, cool. And we test God all the time.
Unintentionally sometimes.
Sometimes unintentionally, but we test him with the actions we take, and we're like, you know what, we're gonna make this leap.
Tell me if I'm doing the wrong thing.
And usually if we are, we get feedback of that, or if we're doing the right thing.
I mean, when you left your job,
Mm-hmm.
Was that last summer?
Somewhere around there. Yeah. Last spring.
Last spring. When you left your job, that was a big one of those, like, I think this is what we're doing correctly, but we could fail.
Right.
And we were down to just my income.
Right.
Which was terrifying.
I was door dashing, but yeah, for the most part, we were down.
But your door dashing was just to make sure that we didn't have to worry about taking care of the babies out of my income.
Right.
So we were really just down to my income because it was net zero for what you were making.
Right.
And you found a better place where you're happier and less stressed. You're actually using your degree now.
Right.
Like, we have seen the blessings tenfold from you listening to that, like, the unease in your spirit of this is not where I'm supposed to be.
Right. And I'm happier now than I've ever been in my work life. And, you know, we're better off financially at this point.
Yeah.
Like, and not to say that, you know, you have to do all these things to get financially blessed. Don't ever hear us saying prosperity gospel.
Don't do that. It was not fun.
No.
It was not easy. It was terrifying. And when we say that we're better off financially, we mean that we're not in the negative anymore.
Right.
Because we were struggling.
Yeah. But each time that we push towards love and we push towards kind of betting on justice.
Yeah.
And betting on making things better, it tends to work out.
We might have a small group that's here during Safe Space, but every time that we bet on them and bet on doing things that we have more time to take care of them, things get better. Yeah.
And again, like going back to the original text of, you have to understand that there are things going around outside of you. And that's not to say that focusing on you sometimes isn't healthy.
No, because you need to focus on you.
You've got to focus on you.
If you can't take care of you, how can you take care of anybody else?
Right. But it's that balance of, well, this is going to put me out. This is going to make me uncomfortable.
But is it going to hurt you, or is it just going to hurt your pride?
Right. Or your amount of effort you have to put into something. Right. Or you have to take that dangerous step of going, no, I'm going to side with the oppressed.
Right.
Because that's what Jesus did every time. And another conversation that we had, that Jesus was hanging out, and it's always brought up, of Jesus hung out with the prostitutes and the tax collectors, who were the worst of the worst at the time.
They were still prostitutes and tax collectors while hanging out with Jesus.
Right. He didn't change them. Like, there's no place in the Bible where it says that they changed.
Nope.
It says that he saw who needed his ministry.
And he went to them.
And he went to them and spoke into their life. Were there some that maybe changed? Potentially. Yeah. But it was deemed not important enough for him to talk about. So, yet you have this side of Christianity where it's, well, you have to change if you're going to follow Jesus. And if you don't change everything about yourself, then you're not a real Christian. And it's not the case. It's love God.
And love people.
Love people.
And that, I think we're going to bring it back here. And that's the main message every time. These verses specifically is the be prepared for division. Be prepared for it to be hard.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be easy.
Well, we already run into it.
Yeah.
Like, our online presence, we're always getting stuff that's like, you're leading people to hell. I go live most mornings because I have the time to do that. And at least once alive, I'm getting told that I am, you know, having an antichrist spirit, and I am, you know, driving people to hell along with me.
Right.
That's that division that we're going to see.
Exactly.
Because we're preaching love and not judgment.
Right.
And that's what Jesus preached the entire time he was on earth.
Right.
He said that there's only one judge, and that we will be judged.
Yeah.
But we'll be judged on how we treat others.
Exactly.
And if we are in an intent of, I'm going to make life better for myself and the people around me, no matter who those people are, I can't believe that an all-loving, all-powerful God is going to be upset with us for that.
Right.
And if he is, then he's not all-loving.
He's not.
And he's not all-powerful. And I don't want it.
Exactly.
But
and I think that's a good place to kind of...
Yeah, definitely.
Stop it.
But if you guys have any questions, obviously we talked about a lot today.
A lot.
In, 20 minutes. But
we kind of ramble sometimes.
I hope that it, makes you examine some things that are going on around you. It makes you examine maybe some things that people have said to you.
Yeah.
And if you have questions, if you want us to dive into anything with you, please let us know either in the comments down below or shoot us a message on our website or come hang out with us on Sundays at 2.
Yeah.
And ask us about it if you're in the Fort Wayne area or, somewhere close by. We'd always love to see you.
Yeah.
But
heck, we'll grab coffee sometime.
Yeah, let us know. But you have anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining in with us on another week of Unfiltered Love, where we take the filter off and we talk about the issues going on around us.
Yeah.
Love you guys. We'll see you next week.
See you next time.